with a lot of us as Nigerians is a lot of good things have happened, a lot of changes have occurred, but we're very focused on final outcome, that we're not noticing the process. And so we're not patting ourselves on the back for the changes that are occurring because they have not reached where we think we should be. So you hear, Nigeria, nothing is being done. But the Nigeria of today is not the Nigeria of 20 years ago. There's been a lot of development. There are lots of opportunities. Yes, we could do better. There are lots of problems. I mean, we could cut down on the corruption. We could improve on our best practices. But we also have to contend with a population that has exploded. And so getting all these things right, I say sometimes that if you could just bring together all the development and keep it in a little space and with a small population, Nigeria would really be up there amongst the others. But we're diluted by these large population, and that has its toll on development. The amount, I mean, right now we're 220 million, and I think in about 20 years ago, we were only about 40 million. So we're 222 million now, and it's expected that by 2050 we would have doubled our population.
Wow.
So the amount that we really need to look at that population. So that's a challenge on itself, so that it makes it difficult that anything you do is diluted. Even if you're hitting 200, we constantly have to do above and beyond. However, what I have found in the last 8 years of being in administration, is it 8? Sorry, almost 12 now, and when
and it's not just
only
it's
4.
leadership,
academic
exactly.
leadership in administration.
We're VCs, we lead.
Yes. Is that in the partnerships that have worked and kept people here, were partnerships that, as you said, were equitable.
Yeah.
And there were partnerships that were not just touching the surface, but were walking with you. We were working equally. And a lot of the things that needed to be done were done here. I can speak to a partnership I have been involved with, which in addition to being what was good for me, was also about mentoring the future researchers. We've been at this since 2010, I think it was 2010, and we're still going on. It morphed into others. And so what we found was that because there was continuity and there wasn't the whole project was around Nigerians doing the things they needed to do. It was together. Investigators that were the lead were Nigerians, and the labs, there was some infrastructure that was developed. So people, even after the project stopped, the labs remain. So right now I still have a reference laboratory for HIV, and a lot of work is going on there. And it's not just for HIV, it's moving on, it's worked for COVID, and the people who have been there have used the infrastructure developed, not just by my project, but other people's, to get new grants. So those who are getting grants and having the ability to achieve their dreams here are not going. The people leaving are those who haven't been able to, I mean, give or take some. So I think if we can, in our partnership, have these collaborations, because what do we want? We want to self-actualize. We want to feel that we've made an impact. And sometimes we don't have the resources, so we want partners where we can work together. We have ideas we can't translate because we don't have the resources. And sometimes we don't have the know-how. So when we have partners that believe in our country, in us, and are willing to walk with us in solving our problems. Because often, a lot of the grants come about topics that don't necessarily speak to our challenges. And so, and sometimes these, you know, if we get these long-term relationships, then trust is built, and
Absolutely.
we all start to, it's a lot of trust and a lot of working together.
And,
So
and it's
I see
about
that.
developing genuine mutualistic symbiosis for a long term,
For a long
built
term.
on trust.
Yes.
When both or all partners are absolutely getting much more out of that partnership than just the kind of additive value of I get something and you get something.
Exactly.
And you know, for me, that's what partnership should be about. And you know, whether it's a partnership south-south, north-north, north-south,
It has to be mutually
it's
respectful.
got to be mutually respectful. You know, it's something that you've really been advocating, and in your public statements when you became Vice-Chancellor.
Yes.
Goodness me, if I'd had to make a public statement before I became Vice-Chancellor of Dundee, maybe you've been talking to someone else right now, I don't know. At least I got a year to do it. But even in these public statements, you're very, very clear on that direction of travel. Do you feel you're getting, you know, obviously you're not going to deliver success in a year, but do you feel
No.
you're making progress?
Definitely. I'm beginning to get traction. I have quite a number of goals. Some of them are things that would happen anyway, except that you tweak the direction.
Yep.
And so some of the bigger ones, like fully automating we started. We've done a gap analysis, you know. So I'm looking, and we've got a consultant working with us. So I know that in another 2-3 years, we're going to be there, because those are long term. The short term are working on mindset. Not short term, but starting. Now, that is tough, but I think we have started that. And also building our pride in who we are. And that's, I'm doing with the Faculty of Arts and Creative Arts, because there's so much richness in our culture. And unfortunately for us as a country, some time ago, I don't know which president decided they didn't need to teach history. So we have a whole generation of young people who have no idea about the richness of their history and the strength of their people and the values. And so we're working on bringing that back, not just through song, but also bringing industry, people who are in industry, who talk about ethics, the value system. We've become a country where money is the most important thing, whereas we were people where money was not the most important thing. No matter what you had, they wanted to know your character. Somewhere we lost our way. We need to get back there. And I think we're beginning to see the problems in the country. So we're doing a lot of things in that direction, enabling. And I see myself really more as a facilitator. There's nothing I wrote there that we don't have. I think what I'm probably doing is pushing people to express themselves more and choosing those areas that I think we need that expression. Recently, we were in the Department of Architecture. The talents we have here, and which is still part of this issue of believing in ourselves. So as a university, I've seen the products from, what our architecture students, mind-blowing, and we're not going to use them, because how do you tell somebody what you've done is great if you can't use it? So the university will use it. That will validate. So we won't get everybody, but I think we can start. And we've started. I hope that by the time I'm done, we'll have a different kind of, buzz around the campus and the University of Lagos.
You know, it's extraordinary to hear you say some of these things. It's extraordinary to hear you say it because, for me, for us from outside Nigeria, we come to Nigeria and we look at Nigeria as a vibrant, buzzy, exciting, creative place. And, why wouldn't you want to change the world by being here in Nigeria? But at the end of the day, one could also see that kind of lack of confidence, that lack of self-belief, that shift, as you say, of maybe over-marketization of values. And if I compare that to my own journey over the last few years in Dundee, I came into a university that wasn't sure what it existed to do. And we were having discussions like, well, are we a mini Edinburgh? Are we like University X or University Y? And over the course of some time, what I did as an enabler like you was to say, well, can we just focus on who we are? Because who we are as Dundee, of Dundee, for Dundee, with that social purpose, with that actually trying to change the world, do what we've always done. That's what we've been good at. That is us. So let's be true to our values and become a more confident place. But it's in a different scale. It's such a similar journey.
Very
it's really
similar.
quite remarkable. It's really quite remarkable.
Certainly. I think one of the things I saw as a researcher, as a leader in the space, is the fact that somehow we've been made to feel we must conform. And people are afraid of thoughts and ideas that don't, I guess it's everywhere, but it's much worse here. Ideas that don't fit. Well, you can only make groundbreaking discoveries when you're not following what everybody's doing. You've got to be different. So it's really, how do we allow, and I say that all the time because we have a tendency to conform, but how do we allow students and staff to be non-conformists? The kind of creativity that is needed to advance knowledge. So we have a lot of things we're working on.
And I guess one of the last things that I want to pick up on before passing the baton to you.
Yes.
A couple. So obviously one of the things that you've done since you've been here is you've created incredible diversity at the top of this university. Incredible diversity. There was a man once in that leadership team. And earlier, when we were doing just a tour around the campus, we went to one of your innovation centres and came across a group of schoolgirls who were learning about essentially digital confidence and thinking about potentially they could do something as tech entrepreneurs. And you and your colleagues made some not just insightful but really powerful remarks on believe in yourself, keep going, believe that you can do things, don't allow one hand tied behind your back. How far do you think you've still got to go on that journey to really open up the equity and the inclusiveness of that 200 million growing? Because on the one hand it's a large population that dilutes, on the other hand it's an incredibly energetic young population that can do things.
I think we still have a long way, but I don't think it is an impossible way. And part of the issue of women and the way and their role in society in Nigeria, and maybe in different ethnic groups, is very interesting. It hasn't been the one way, it hasn't been always like this. We have a sort of dual, and here the historians might grab me, microbiologists.
We're two microbiologists, we're safe in each other's company.
Okay, we can talk, we can say anything, and we have the mic.
Exactly.
Yes, let me say, if you go into a lot of traditional in the 50s and 60s, mothers worked And many people were sent to school because the mothers worked. It was the mother that sent them to school. Pre-colonialism, in parts of, in many parts of this country, women, there was an issue of women and men. For example, in our language, if we talk about siblings, we don't have brother and sister. There's no, for example, there's no Yoruba word for brother or sister. It's about my sibling. And what we really value is age. And that age is, so we talk of my older sibling, my younger sibling. And before the colonial, before we were colonized, we had chiefs in Yoruba land, female chiefs that were big, they were as strong as the men. When the British came at that time, they were not used to these strong women. And if you remember the Benin warriors, the Amazons in Benin, if you ask about Queen Amina in Zaria, where she led the army, the female-male relationship wasn't quite this. But when the British came, part of what happened was that they only engaged with the men. And so gradually the female power sort of went down. I'm oversimplifying, but it is true. And after a while, you found that the voice of the female in sort of public space diminished, in terms of the power diminished. Some people would say, what of the bride rights and the women problems? There were also, in many places, protections for women. All those sort of went away, and we were left with a sort of raw power, and gradually the problems went, and then we brought in religion on top of that, and then everything just sort of went south. So in the last few years, we've started sort of regaining the ground. And I say this really because it's a sort of mixed bag of the rights and things that don't work. But what has happened anyway, in any way we look at it, is that the way we socialize the girls is such that they have to be nice, and they have to be sort of, they shouldn't be too bright, they shouldn't be too aggressive or assertive. And if you are, it's not, it's not expected. And so for me, it was some of the things that you had to deal with, recognizing that if you're assertive, it is perceived worse than a man is assertive. And I've seen that. I mean, it was a joke. Or something with the tigress in Unilag. It was a joke, but it was a joke that you could call Freudian as well. But so for many women, you don't want to be in the limelight. And it is quite brutal out there when you're in the public space. You have to come to terms with the fact that lies will be told about you, or should I say untruths. You're going to hear things that are, the motive for what you do will be misunderstood, will be twisted. I think the men have gotten used to it. For us as women, we're very emotional about it. You have to learn not to take it personally. And that's something that I think holds back a lot of women, because we're brought up to value our reputation in a way that the men, they know how to play the game. So I think slowly we're getting there. We're learning not to worry so much. And after being in, should I say, the public space for quite a while, I'm beginning to realize it does go away. If you're consistent, those who know you will know you, and all those sort of, they go away, or they're held by people you don't know. And if you don't know them and they don't know you, why are you worried? So those are the sort of things, and I think for women, it's really do your thing, be strong, and we are strong. And I tell women that if you can, in this part, if you can be married, you've been married for a long time, or you're even a woman who's navigated a lot of spaces, you've played a lot of, you tend to understand people. So there's nothing you can't do. Just put your heart to it. You'll get it.
Well, I think we could have a very, very long conversation indeed,
know,
couldn't
I
we,
could.
about how we strip away some of the fallacies and the challenges that humankind, particularly men, have put in place to put women down over the years. And I hope we'd have common cause. Look, I want to just ask one last question.
Okay.
And it's about internationalization. So this is International Week. And you brought together a great group of people. We've already heard some really telling comments, and I'm sure over the next couple of days there's going to be more discussions. What do you, as the VC of this university and a Nigerian leader, what constitutes success for that international engagement, for International Week and internationalization? How will you know if this is working for you?
What would constitute success is when I start to see true bilateralism. Our lecturers are going, but your lecturers are coming. But more importantly, you're trusting us with your students. Then I know we're successful. When we are also when we are together setting the agenda for the research, I know we're talking success. When there's an issue and you say, hey, Unilag, what do you think about this? How do we solve this? I know that it means we're beginning to see that both of us are part of the solution. When in the bigger picture, what we do here as the universities translates to the political space, where the relationship and the main agenda or the main focus of discussion about dealing with Africa is not around philanthropy or immigration, then I know that we've really finally become equitable. We will start it. So there's the immediate success of us together, and then how do we impact the way our countries interact? Then I know we have success.
That's fantastic. I think we need to start it. We need to help shine a light on the way and bring some of the young people that we see into the future. Okay, it's your turn. Yes. I'm going to pass the microphone to you. I am all yours.
After grilling me, you're in trouble.
I know.
You know,
I shouldn't have gone first.
Yes, and I think one of the things I'm a young Vice-Chancellor. I haven't even spent 12 months on this seat.
Yeah.
Well, you're far along, you know, and you've been doing a lot more. So let me know about your journey and how you've navigated all the, you know, challenges of being Vice-Chancellor and dealing with students, staff, how you navigate. You know, there's just so many things. Tell me the highlights and the things that I can take from you that would help.
So I think you've already done quite a lot. Whether you're just naturally doing it or calling up Professor Peter and saying, Peter, what's he been doing for the last year? So I've been Vice-Chancellor in Dundee for it's a little bit under 3 years. So the end of December is the end of my 3 years. And I think the main things that we've had success in is to understand who we are as a university, what we're for, what our values are, and what our core purpose is. And it's genuinely to stop asking who are we like and saying this is who we are, this is what matters to us. And our strategy, and we talked a little bit about it this morning, around that triple intensity, so being clear what the university is for, teaching and learning, outstanding research, and real engagement with the community, that all of them matter just as much, and they come together under social purpose. When I joined the University of Dundee, we were the 5th most research-intensive university in the UK. And what that means is the proportion of our income that came from research compared to all of our income was 5th highest. Now, some of that was because we had very high research income. Some of that was because we didn't have very high income from other things. So 5th highest was a double-edged sword there, to be honest. And my predecessors had decided that the way to deal with this, because research doesn't fully fund itself in the UK, you have to cross-subsidise it. So my predecessors had decided that Dundee would no longer grow its research base. We would look to flatline our research. And I came in and looked at that and I thought, well, hold on a second. We're a research-intensive university. How can you decide not to do more research? So I scratched that. Second thing was, well, what we need to be able to do is meet our costs. So the university had been losing money. And in fact, it had been losing money, not a lot, but was in deficit and had been for every year for the last 10. And so the answer was we must cut our costs until we're financially sustainable, and that financial sustainability will deliver academic excellence. And I said, nonsense. Academic excellence delivers financial sustainability. Financial sustainability delivers shrinkage. So we switched from thinking about money to thinking about what's a university for, how can we be excellent, how can we really make the difference. And around that international piece, internationalization, you talked about equitable internationalization. And we've been on this journey to think about our international engagement as true globalization, true partnership. And last year, we'll probably come onto this, we signed this Blantyre Declaration with Malawian public universities, which seeks to do exactly what you suggested, that genuine co-design. So that shift from a university that was doing nicely, thank you, but losing money, focusing on money, not really clear on what it was about, into one that's much more confident, much clearer about what it's for, where academic excellence and that social purpose is at its core. And hey presto, this year, for the first time in actually now 11 years, the University of Dundee has made a surplus. Oh. It's increased the money in the bank, and we're able to, for the first time in over a decade, invest. And we've done that by being us.
Wow, that's powerful, because that's what I'm thinking that we need to do. We need to be us first before we can impact anybody and be proud of who we are. And this Blantyre, can you explain it a little more to see how that works for us?
So let me do a little bit of history, if I go back a bit first. So before I was in Dundee, I was in the University of Leicester. And prior to that, I spent a decade in the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And in the OECD, we developed the idea of, the Accra Declaration on aid effectiveness, on think about aid as being something which is co-designed by donor and by recipient, so that this isn't the rich north pushing out money to the poor south saying, if you do X, we'll give you money, but rather, what do you need and how can we help you? And we tried to take that idea of aid effectiveness, of co-design and mutuality, and bring it into research cooperation. And in fact, it was the German Ministry of Foreign Affairs that led on this in the OECD. Germans led on that effectiveness of research, like mutualism in research, and the Dutch government led on work that we did around addressing infectious diseases of the poor, malaria, TB, cholera, and the rest. So it's these European governments that are really trying to change the goals. And as in any intergovernmental organization, you make policy, but somebody's got to turn that policy into practice. So when I joined Leicester, we set up a project and something called the Nairobi Partnership between University of Nairobi, University of Witwatersrand, University of Rwanda, University of Malawi, University of Leicester, on trying to push at these equitable partnerships. We funded it out of UKRI's GCRF work. The problem was all the work followed the money rather than the money followed the requirements. So in Dundee, what we did in the Blantyre Declaration is we worked with our Malawian partner university and said, what is it together we want to achieve and do? How do we want to do that? Through co-design, through equitable partnerships, through capacity building and the rest. let's decide on our agenda and our vision, then let's go together after the money. And it's made it a much more equitable, honest partnership to do what's right.
Okay, and this, the Blantyre, and how do we bring that sort of relationship? How do we do that into the Unilag Dundee relationship? How does that translate here?
So we use the Blantyre Declaration as a tag because of Scotland and Malawi's partnership, including through our governments. And this was partly about getting universities to be in the line of sight of the two governments. The two governments not giving us any money, but at least can give us support and encouragement.
Yes.
But what's in the Blantyre Declaration, the way of working that we now try and talk about is a Dundee way, that is exactly the way that we will approach all of our global partnerships. So the Blantyre Declaration, whether it's something that is signed or not, determines our way of working in partnership. And with Unilag, as far as we're concerned, the Blantyre Declaration, the content of that absolutely holds in what you and I have been talking about in these equitable partnerships.
Fantastic. I'm actually quite impressed with your vision and how you have sort of turned that into, this, into the way you interrelate. I wonder, what's the personal thing that's driving this? Apart from, what made you come to this? And have you had long interactions with Africa before? Just what's driving?
So I guess, my first interaction was with Africa. So you talk about siblings, older and younger siblings.
Yes.
So I had 3 siblings, only one sadly is still with us, but they were all 20-something years older than I was. So I was, as my father would talk about, God's gift to James. And my mother went, oh my God, another child. But I came along 20 years after the others. So the others made their way in the world, and my brother Jim ended up working as manager of a bank in Uganda. In the 1960s. And so my first trip to Africa was in 1967. And if you ask me why did it put the hook into my system and into my blood, I couldn't tell you. I could not give you a rational answer to it. But it's been a thorn in my side for a continent that's got of people that can offer so much, work so hard, so much to deliver, that we have been, as the North, so brutally unfair to, and where some of the big problems and opportunities of humankind sit. So, as someone that's involved in that notion of social purpose, as a scientist, how could I not want to work with my colleagues in Africa? I've always wanted to, just like you, I want to make the world a better place. I think you've got to be driven to do these jobs.
Yeah.
And this is, in our Africa initiative, our partnerships, this is part of the contribution that we can all make to our mutual future.
I always love talking with you, and I am, this issue of equitable partnerships. How do we, hope to embed the globalization throughout the activities of the University of Dundee? How do you do that? And how does it have benefits for all students and staff?
So let me put on, my hard-headed Vice-Chancellor's hat now.
Okay.
My hard-headed Vice-Chancellor's hat. We are, as VCs, what are we here to do? We're here to give some vision, some leadership, some direction, and then we're here to enable our smart people to
do their
achieve
thing.
things. And that's partly by removing inappropriate barriers. That's partly by encouraging and trying to reconfigure. It's partly by keeping some of the, with a small p and sometimes a big P, the politics away from them. And it's by making sure that the resources are available to them to do what they can do best. So we have to, part of our job is raising money from innovative places, but we need to raise the money in order to resource what we do. So our globalization has to enable us to make success. So it has to have a net benefit in terms of the cash that it draws in. But it's also got to inspire people. It's also got to make people want to be involved in globalization. So that globalization is not something that's done over there, business as usual here, and globalizations are. But globalization is business as usual. That is what we are looking to achieve. So working across our intensity, finding ways, creative ways of creating opportunities for students, of generating income from that, but then maintaining that income into building up these connections, creating opportunities for research partnerships, and then jointly benefiting from the research income, creating opportunities for better entrepreneurship, and jointly benefiting from that entrepreneurship. Success will breed success. We will not do it we probably won't succeed. Well, I'm sure you're much younger than I am. You certainly look much younger and energetic than I am. Maybe I might not in my career, but you will in yours.
Well, by God's grace. But I want to thank you. It's been very enlightening talking with you. We're caught in the globalization, and I think for us here, part of it is how do we ensure that we get the benefits of globalization as well. And it has been interesting, our relationship. We don't always have these good relationships that work to equity. We've had some, and as a university in a low and medium income country, we're always looking to ensure that we don't get the short end of the stick. And I have to say that our relationship with your university has been good and, in fact, great. And I look forward to us working even closer together and co-designing, co-researching, and co-taking on the world and making it a better place. I think there's a lot we have to offer, and I know that you know that, so I'm not going to preach that. And I'm looking forward to when your students come here, and we come. So we're looking forward to having you guys come here too.
Absolutely. Together, we're going to save the world even better than we're already doing.
For sure, for sure.
Excellent.
Nice to meet you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think part of it, let me just have one word, is why we have the International Week. It's not just about the academia. It's also to bring our partners here to see us, to know us, to see the great country that we have. That goes beyond what you get on the internet. And I think we're beginning to succeed. Each year we get a few more people, and I think by the time my tenure is over, we should have, done quite a bit together and with many of our partners. So I want to thank you, Iain, anytime. You're welcome anytime in the University of Lagos. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for participating.
To the future. somewhere to go. Yes, so we'll see at the hotel. We'll see the hotel. If you catch us there. Perfect. Okay.
I hope you liked it.